look at this. Isn't this incredible? A pride of lions. And a big welcome to Mrs. Cox's Mrs. I got very confused there. But Cox High School's class. Mrs. Clark is the teacher. And you're on Safari Live, and I fluffed that completely. My name is Brent Leo Smith. I have Brian Joubert on. What is the thumb today?
Kind of a flower. A
flower thumb. So we're going to have to look for some flowers a little later. And we are with the Nkahuma Pride of Lions. James and Dave are on the other vehicle, and we have Rebecca and Kirsten in final control. There we go. Lions doing what lions do best. Now, a lot of you have watched a lot of documentaries, and there's lots of mayhem and murder that goes about when you're watching lions. But for the majority of the time, due to their metabolic rate, lions are fast asleep. They sleep for an average of about 20 out of 24 hours. So most times that you see lions, they are snoozing somewhere. Now, interesting enough, one of these females is definitely pregnant. She's the one lying off behind that small little tree as we drifted past. And you can see that because it's a sort of different weight to a full-bellied weight. So it sits a little bit further back in the belly and a little bit heavier, so quite exciting. Probably, I'd say, maybe not more than a month or so into the pregnancy. So another couple of months to go. Lion's gestation period is between 90 and 110 days, so around 3 months. Very short gestations, as with most of the predators. Now, the young of a lion are born. Oh, you hear that? We could get something quite interesting here. It sounds like there's elephants just behind the lions. You can just hear them moving through the bush and some low rumbles. Well, happy birthday to Michelle. And Michelle is wondering, how long is a lion's pregnancy? As I was saying, it's between 90 and 110 days. So from 3 months to just over 3 months. All your predators have very short gestation periods. And this is because of the very high mortality rate that they experience. So lions, on average, will probably only successfully raise 30% of all the offspring they ever give birth to. So they've got a 70% mortality rate amongst the cubs. So only 3 out of 10 cubs born survive. Life out in the bush can be quite harsh. Lots of different dangers to those little lion cubs. And the biggest danger is not from another predator, it's from other male lions. So if the coalitions take over or if a nomadic male comes through, he will kill those cubs. So it's a very, very tenuous process. And the females tend to den in very thick areas, sometimes very similar to like this, rocky outcrops, caves. And little lion cubs are incredibly cute, but unfortunately most of them don't last too long. Oh, we have a head raised, at least that's something. Now, lions often lie very close together, and we can see that here. Now, that's quite important with their social structure. They are the only social or truly social cat in the world. So they live in female prides and male coalitions. And this ties in with what Blake was asking. Do they always stay in groups or packs? They do, Blake, and they are called prides. So this is a pride of lion, and this is a female pride, and you have male coalitions. So in this pride, there's actually no real hierarchy between the females. They all sort of are equal. Different individuals will lead the hunts at different times depending on circumstance. Now, that is unlike the males, the male coalitions. There's a very definite hierarchy amongst the male coalitions, but it is an interchangeable hierarchy. Oh, she's up. Oh, a little stretch. And I'm pretty sure she's just going to move a little bit further away from that spot she's on. So during a hot day like today, she will just move to the next spot where the sand's a bit cool. Oh, look at that little bit of nuzzling. And that goes again with that whole social structure. They need to maintain quite a close bond, specifically with these females here. So they do often lie very, very close to each other. Now, the reason this bond is very close when they're not attacking or fighting or hunting is because when they do get to dinner time, they forget that they're family and absolutely beat each other up to get the best morsels. So there is a definite forgetting of table manners. Now, Vincent and Rhoda are wondering how fast can a lion go? And they have incredible acceleration. They ambush predators and they can do about 21 meters per second. So that works out to about 50 miles per hour. So, but they have a very, very quick top end. So they ambush predators. So they generally are not going to chase after something that's 200 yards away. They want to be close, sort of 50 to 100 yards. Even 100 yards is a bit far. The closer, the better. And they can use that explosive pace because a lot of the animals out here, impala and zebra, have a higher top end than a lion, but they've got a much better acceleration. That's why a lot of people use kilometers and miles per hour, but it's a far more sort of accurate thing if you think about it, like how way a lion moves. It's used seconds per meter. So it takes a lion 1 second, a lion can do 21 meters. And that is incredible. I mean, that is double the distance from us to those lions. So in 1 second, a lion can cover double that distance. So exciting to see the big cats, but they're going to be sleeping for a little bit longer. We're probably going to move out from here now. And while we do that, let's jump across to James, who's got another member of Africa's Big Five.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this end of the live broadcast. A safari for some of you, a biology lesson for others, and hopefully somewhere a combination of both for everybody. My name is James Hendry. On camera today we have got David Eastor, yes, that really is his surname, freshly returned from leave in Johannesburg, and David is filming an elephant. It wasn't just the tree. Well done, David, for finding him. And we are off-road and looking at a herd of elephants, and this is a sort of little group of bulls that is, well, sort of lurking on the fringes of the herd. Young bulls don't want to spend too much time with the youngsters. Now, Miss Clark's class of 14 to 16-year-olds, the boys in the class, or young men, will start to know exactly how these elephant bulls feel. You don't want to spend too much time around your mum and dad anymore. Well, not particularly extended public time anyway, and around young kids, and that's exactly how elephants are. Once they get to the age of 14 or so, going up to the age of 20, the bulls start to spend more time on their own in groups of young bulls, and then the rest of the herd spends time with the older females. Now, I know this isn't a particularly wonderful view of the elephants so far. This is what I look like. Hello. We're going to drive through here. There are some more elephants there, a herd of females and babies. We are in quite a thick area, as you can see, and while we drive through here, there will be a bit of noise. Now, the trees we're driving over and through are an encroacher species known as Strychnos madagascarensis, or the black monkey orange. I don't want you to worry about them. They can deal with the nastiness of the Land Rover driving over them. They pop up behind us, but they do make a bit of a noise. Hold on tight. Hello, Deanna. Thank you for your question. If you're interested in the average lifespan of an elephant, sorry, that's Gianna. Gianna. An elephant's lifespan depends quite largely on where it lives, you know. So in an area like this, where if you look around us, there's lots of woody vegetation. They do eat grass when they can, but when the grass is finished, they must eat a lot of woody vegetation, so their teeth wear out faster than they would in other areas. And so over here, probably 55 would be a good length sort of lifespan. But if you go to Botswana, in areas like the Okavango Delta, where they can eat, there's one over there, Dave, before I make too much noise. If you go to the Okavango Delta, where they eat largely a diet of grasses and reeds, well, they probably live a bit longer, maybe 60 years. An elephant dies, Gianna, when the teeth wear out completely. So they get 6 sets of molars during their lives, and then eventually those wear out and they starve to death. Now, this is not a particularly good sighting, so let's go across to Brent quickly with some... Oh, he's also got some elephants. That's good news. Let's go across there.
Hey! There's a very big elephant bull here, and he's in full must. And what that means is hormones are raging, and they can be a little bit tempestuous at this time, but he's just been playing in the mud wallow. So we've got a lot of these big elephant bulls that are trailing breeding herds like that one. So an elephant will only mate when the male is in must and the female is in estrus. So, and these very big males only come into must when there's a lot of females in estrus. So the smaller males won't be in must at this time of the year. And the fact that we've got so many of these big boys in must at the moment is a sign that all the females in estrus. Look at him shake his head. He is massive. So if you look there, I'm trying to figure it out. It's 4 meters. I think that's close on 20. No, 16 or 18 foot at the shoulder there, about 4 meters. They can get bigger than that as well. Now, elephants have the longest gestation period of all animals, and it is 22 months. Isn't that amazing? Let's see. Now we're going to keep our distance from this bull because he can be a little bit aggressive. Hi, Cole. Cole's wondering, how much does an elephant eat in a day? So, coral, sorry. And a big male like that one we've just seen there is capable of eating around 200 to 250 kilograms, so over 400 pounds of vegetable matter in a day. He also drink about, I'm trying to work this out, I think it's about 20 gallons, 100 liters, about 20 gallons of water. So there's an incredible amount of elephants out and about at the moment. So James has got some more, so let's go have a look.
Well, we very luckily came out of the windy, impenetrable forest there, and there is a little baby elephant there, a young one, probably only about, maybe 5 or 6 months old, and still suckling from her mother, which has disappeared. And Jacob, you're interested in what the mass or weight of an elephant is when they're born? Well, normally about 100 kilograms, Jacob. Now, I know that in the United States you use the imperial system. This is a mystery mystery greater than the building of the pyramids, of course. But that means 220 pounds or so, Jacob. 220 pounds for a baby elephant. So that's enormous. And they don't look that big, especially when you look at them on screen. Now, they probably don't look that big, but they really are huge. So we'll just follow them. There are even more over here. As Brent says, there are lots and lots of elephants all over the place at the moment. And suddenly, we don't really know why that is. You know, sometimes they're around and sometimes they're in. Let's just ease our way through here. We'll get you a view of some of the others. I think this will be a good one through here. So the elephants just have to eat pretty much all the time, and they will spend, the big adults, probably up to 75% of their lives chewing away at grass and branches and leaves and pods and fruits and twigs and all sorts of other kinds of vegetation. And there you can see that one there digging for something specific. And for a long time we thought elephants were completely unselective feeders. And they're not, you know, they're really good at discerning exactly what it is they want to eat. And I'm sure that that stems from a, well, unconscious but certainly a very definite understanding of their own nutritional status. And Anna, well, let's just slowly sort of ease our way through here. You're interested in how long it is that an elephant stays with its mother and does it differ from male to female. Anna, it doesn't really differ, no. They wean at about 2.5 years, and then they are just part of a herd. But now the females, of course, will remain with the herd for the rest of their lives. They live in what we call the male herd, so the herd of their mothers. And the bulls will leave when they're about 15 to 17 years old, well, up to 20 or so. They will have to go off on their own. Hey, there's a whole group coming through here. They've obviously been wallowing in the mud close by. Let's get into the clearing. There's a nice clearing just ahead. Here we go. Lots and lots. There are elephants everywhere. Now look, there's one with a floppy ear. We saw him this morning. And we think that that is a sort of cartilage in the ear that's broken. And so the ear has flopped forward. And that's a young bull. It won't affect him too much to have a floppy ear like that. Here's a close by one. Here's a young bull coming close by. He's only about 20 meters from us. That's about 70 feet. If that. Here comes a much larger bull. So in terms of age, I'd say that the little one, or the smaller one in front of us there, is probably about 12. And that big chap that you can see there is probably 25 or so. He's a mature bull. Now, of course, elephants keep growing until the day that they die. And so he will get even bigger than he is now. And just to give you an idea of how big he is, he's probably just under 10 feet at the shoulder. So he is very tall. He weighs about 5,500 kilograms, 6,000 kilograms. And 6,000 kilograms in pounds, you multiply by 2.2, you get to about 14,000 pounds. And Miss Clark, whose joy it is to be teaching your 12 to 16-year-old or 14 to 16-year-olds today. Miss Clark, you want to know what function the ears and trunk serve for the elephant? Well, while we drive forward, I shall explain that. I mean, they're multiple functions. Obviously, the ears do the normal thing that ears do, and that, of course, is listen. Then the trunk does the normal thing, which is smell, and that's a very important function for the trunk, because an elephant's sense danger. They sense all sorts of things. They sense what they can eat and what they can't eat through the sense of smell in the trunk. And, of course, the trunk is used to pick things up, to pick up bits of grass, to pick up fruits, to break all branches, and all sorts of other things they might want to eat. There's some buffalo up ahead there, so let's go and have a quick look at them. I've seen lots of elephants. There are even more there, but let's have a look at the buffalo first. And so that, I suppose, might be used just that.
So, welcome back. And now we can see the effectiveness of an elephant up in front of us here. And there's so many eddies around at the moment, and they're moving through the bush, and occasionally they do create little traffic jams for us. And we'll try to find a better example than that. And that one's probably come off this bush to the right here. It's a little red bush willow. So elephants, as James was telling you, have to feed throughout the day. And they also feed on a huge variety of plants. And in a normal sort of wet and dry cycle that we have, 80% of their summer or rainy season food is grass, and only 20% is trees. And then in the winter, when the grass disappears, 80% of their food is trees and only 20% grass. And that's nature's way of giving each a chance to recover from a massive animal like an elephant. They also don't have the best digestive systems, only digesting about 70% of what they eat. They leave a lot behind. But that's not a bad thing, because lots of other animals utilize and can feed off what's left of that elephant dung. And actually, how about that? Now, I know all you guys are going to sit there and go, oh, gross! Because I'm about to touch some elephant dung. So elephant dung is something we would pick up. We'd never pick up, say, lion dung. There's lots of nasties in there. And there we go. Here's a nice little bit of elephant dung. Not too fresh. Still a little bit wet in the middle. But as you can see, as I was talking about, let's pop this in here quickly. As I was talking about, so much of that food isn't digested. So, and you can see there's already bugs inside that are feeding off it. Different bird species will come scratch through here, pick out the seeds of different plants, and an elephant eats. And you can see there's grass in here, there's some leaves. And this is quite a young elephant, just judging from the size. So you're not seeing any of those bigger pieces of tree or branch that the bigger elephants eat. And see, there we go, look, I was talking about that. Isn't that fascinating? See him, Brian? There's a tiny little dung beetle who's living in here. Oh, he's burrowing very fast. I can't get there. So that beetle is going to lay his eggs inside this little bit of elephant dung. And when the eggs hatch, those larvae are going to have a nice, fresh meal of elephant dung. Let me just put him off the road so no one drives over him, since there's a little dung beetle living inside. While we keep on meandering through this African wilderness, Mrs. Clark is wondering, what is my background? Well, Mrs. Clark, I'm one of the very fortunate people who has lived and grown up in the African bushveld. My family started safari lodges when I was a very young boy, so I've been living in the bush since born on a farm, and then into proper wild Africa from about 5 years old, 6 years old. So my earliest memory is actually of elephants. Jordan's wondering how much of an elephant's weight is body fat, and probably very, very little. They will have some fat around the kidneys and the liver and the lungs, but most animals that live out here have very, very low body fat because they are constantly on the move. Did you get him, Brian? Okay, so there. Now, this is not something we often get to see at this time of the day. So, there we go. I've lost him for a second in the screen. Okay, no, you've got him. I just need to move the car. So he's right center screen now. I'm just going to move the car. Now, that is a little owlet. So, a nocturnal bird, of course, so, like an owl, but just much smaller. And you don't often see them. There we go. You got him now, Brian. So we're going to have a look and see if we can, a little bit lower. There, a little bit to the right. Look at that. There he is. Now we're going to see if we can identify. Oh, look at that. You see he's got fake eyes on the back of his head. Now that is a giveaway to the species. That is a little pearl-spotted owlet. So one of the smallest owl species in Africa. And he's tiny. Hello, little guy. Now, he might have been chased by one of the other birds. None of them really like having them about. And you can see the little... Oh, I'm not sure if that's a pearl-spotted now, having a look as he looks. So a pearl-spotted owlet has fake eyes on the back of his head. And it's difficult to see in that light, but the barring on his chest is making me think it might be his slightly larger cousin, which is also one of the smallest owl species. We get 3 of the smallest owl species all here on Djuma. So mostly insectivores. Now, I think we got an African barred owlet there, rather than the pearl-spotted I initially thought. No. Let's have a closer look. So, I think I'm going to stick with my original. It's a little pearl-spotted owlet, and it's those dark marks on the back of the head. So, I know, unfortunately, not the best view is he's up in the tree there, but that's what he looks like. Hunts for lots of little different things, insects, and little rodents. Can you see there, Brian? And you can see there those black marks we saw. So false eyes behind the head, so it always looks like he's looking at you. Well, bye-bye, little owl. John is wondering, do we live on the reserve? We do, John. We've got 2 different camps at the moment. So myself and Jamie and Eugene and Louise live in one, and then the rest of the guys live in the other. So probably a couple of 100 meters between them. So we do live on the reserve, and we live on the reserve for 6 weeks at a time, and then we go on holiday for 2 weeks. So we work 7 days a week for 6 weeks, and then go on holiday for 2 weeks. So we don't know about weekends and things like that, because it's just another day for us. But when you love what you do, it's quite easy to get up on a Sunday morning and go to work. Well, Miriam's got me on the spot. Miriam would like to know, what is the average lifespan of the owl? And I'm trying to rack my brains, and I can't actually remember offhand. So Miriam, you're going to have to give me a few seconds, and I'll double check for you. A friend of mine actually studied pearl-spotted owlets, so I should know their lifespan, and I will try to remember now, but I do remember it being closer to sort of 10 years, 12 years, but I've got it on my little app there, and I will have a look when I stop driving. But she studied the difference in calls, alarm calls and mating calls and islets, and she did her master's thesis on that. So she's a very clever lady when it comes to owls. So Coral would like to know, what is my favorite part of the job? Well, Coral, fortunately, I like most of the parts of the job, but I definitely think it's just being out here with the animals. And after I left high school, I briefly went to university, and it didn't really work out for me. It's not for everyone, but I ended up back in the bush, and I've pretty much been in the bush ever since. It's only been about 3 years of my life that I haven't been living amongst elephants and lions. So I just love being out here. this morning on the sunrise safari, James found a leopard somewhere in this area, so we're just going to take a meander around, see if we can see any leopard footprints, and that we'll stop and see if there's anything fascinating that we might see. And guys, remember, keep sending in those questions. What are you wondering about the bush? What would you like to see? And we'll try our best. Well, I've not spotted something on the ground. I'm going to pick it up in a second. But Will Parker's wondering, what is the acceleration speed of a gazelle? Can it outrun a lion? Its top end is higher, so it can keep up that higher speed for a longer period. But their initial burst, that sort of power and speed that a lion and leopard have, is a little bit quicker. So the acceleration is quicker, but a gazelle's top, or an impala's top speed, is higher. We don't have any gazelles here. They occur up further into East Africa and to West. We've only got antelope. But now, let's see how clever you guys are. I'm going to pop this on the dashboard. And who can tell me what animal that comes from? So I'll be very impressed if you can guess what animal that comes from. And once you guys have had a few guesses, I'll tell you a little bit more about it. So, while we continue to meander through the African bushveld, we were just speaking about antelope species and impala. So let James show you one quickly.
So we've come quite a long way from where we last saw you, everybody. We were looking at some buffalo, and then we lost signal, I'm afraid. Anyway, we've come north from where we were to a clearing, and in this clearing we have some nyala. That's what you're looking at now. Nyala bulls, completely distinct from nyala cows, of which I can't see any. And then if just you go to the left of that, you've got some impala. Now the impala are the most common antelope that we find out here. And those are males, and they're obviously males because they've got horns, so that makes them very clearly male. And the females don't have horns, and they too will be around here somewhere, but they are just coming into their sort of estrus cycle, and that's making the males particularly unfriendly to each other. Hello, Will Parker. You're interested in speed, as are most young men, and indeed most older men. And you say, what is the acceleration speed of a gazelle? Well, first of all, these are not gazelles. Remember, a gazelle is slightly distinct from an antelope. And one of the best ways to note the difference, I suppose, is that the females also have horns, which is quite interesting. These are antelope, but your question is a good one. Can they outrun the lion? Well, it depends. Over a very short distance, no, they cannot. A lion is very fast over a very short distance. They're very powerful. They have explosive speed. But once something like an impala or a nyala becomes aware of a lion, and they keep within what they call the flight distance. So the flight distance is the distance within which an animal will run away from a potential predator. Now, if they stay outside of that flight distance, yes, they will be able to outrun anything that comes to get them. So although a lion can run at sort of 40 to 45 miles an hour probably, a really, really fast one, maybe 50 miles an hour, these antelope are not much slower. And remember, a lion could hardly maintain that for a very long time. And Blake, as we look at that lovely sight there of what we call feathered chloris, is that grass being eaten by young male impala, you want to know if we ever, in fact, interact with the animals or if we just observe. Well, Blake, it's impossible not to interact because obviously we're in it. So we're in the wilderness here. We try as far as possible to just observe, but whenever we go past something like those elephants, they are aware of us. And likewise, these animals here are aware of us. So although we're not having an obvious interaction, you can be very sure that the antelope here are watching us quite carefully. We're within a comfortable distance from them, so they're not reacting to us, but we're actually having a sort of silent interaction as we speak. So if you watch carefully, I'll drive forward, watch how they react. It's impossible for us to just simply observe, because they are going to react to us. They're obviously quite nervous because they're the most common antelope. Everything likes to eat them. Cheetah, wild dog, hyena, lion, leopard, they all like to eat impala. So as we approach them, and we can do this much more closely in a vehicle than we can on foot, so they will move slightly. Oh look, okay, there's a squirrel on the tree here, and there's a monkey just behind there. There's a little tree squirrel, everybody. Much smaller, I think, than the squirrels you get at home. That thing is only about 8 inches long, so very little. And it's called an African tree squirrel. And it thinks it's very clever. It's flattened itself against the bark there and is trying to remain invisible. And Gianna, another great question from you about animals in common between the continents. Well, you're in North America, of course, and we have very few animals in common, and that's, of course, because we're separated by the mighty Atlantic Ocean. And I suppose if you go all the way around the other side of the world, you can, and if you consider that we go back to the last ice age, the Bering Strait would have been frozen, so that would have been a land bridge, I suppose, between Eurasia and then eventually to Africa. But because of that huge separation, and the separation that has been for so long, we have very few animals the same. But we do have animals that are related to each other. So, about 10,000 years ago, apparently lions actually occurred in North America. I've read that somewhere, and I'm not convinced it's true, but you do have relatives of lions. You've got your cougars, your mountain lions, which are relatives of all the big cats that we have here. You have your buffalo, we have our buffalo, and although they're not very closely related, they are similar. Down in South America, of course, you've got the jaguar, which is very similar and quite closely related to the lions and leopards of Africa. We don't have bears. We do have something called a painted wild dog, or painted wolf, which we call it, which is our kind of African equivalent of a wolf, but we don't have a wolf as such. We've got two kind of coyote-like species called jackals, but they're not quite the same and they don't fit into the same genus. So although we have related animals that have filled the same kind of niches as the animals in the North America and in South America, there's nothing that's actually exactly the same, which was tremendously exciting. Let's just sneak a little bit forward here. And Taylor, you're interested in the predators, and that's actually why we came up to where we are now initially. There were reports of a leopard in this area, so we're just going to drive slowly through here. Taylor, you want to know what the biggest devourer of the antelope is? What eats most of the antelope? Well, Taylor, as I park here in the shade, everything eats the antelope, all of the big predators. So the major predators here would be the lions at the top of the hierarchy, then the spotted hyena, which of course gets a very bad name from the Lion King, but it is in fact a magnificent animal, fascinating to watch and really interesting. Then we've got leopards, wild dogs, and cheetahs, and those are the main top 5 predators that would prey on something like this young impala here. This young impala is he's just over a year old now. Now, David, I'm going to ask you to answer your own question here. You want to know what is the average temperature and what season is it? Well, the temperature here right now is about 29 degrees Celsius, which is 84 degrees Fahrenheit. We are in the southern hemisphere, you are in the northern hemisphere, and you are going into springtime. And so we must be, and therefore, going into what you would call fall or autumn. So as you go into summer, we will go into winter. And that's basically how it works. The side of the equator is exactly opposite from the side of the equator that you are on. let's move up a little bit forward here. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
Have a marvellous afternoon.
Marvelous.
That's the game drive, everyone. And of course, around here, what pays for all of this magnificent wilderness, and half the reason that we're able to keep it conserved like we are, is because of tourism. And those are tourists, and they are helping to preserve the wilderness out here, which is very exciting indeed. So we're going to ease our way slowly up to a big clearing here, and with any luck, that leopard that was seen around here will pop out. Zach, lovely question. You're obviously going to be an academic one day. Zach, you say, what kind of research is being carried out over here? Well, the largest research here is to do with the big cats. And there's a very large sort of multinational NGO called Panthera, which was started out here in South Africa. And they study big cats from all over the world. But they're doing long-term studies on the leopards and the lions of the area. And they are also doing studies on some rare birds, like the ground hornbill, which is an enormous turkey-like bird with a chisel-like beak. It likes to eat tortoises. It is very endangered, and so they're doing some research on them too. And there's the major research going on in this particular area. But you must remember that you're part of the Kruger National Park and the Greater Kruger National Park, and because of that, there is an enormous amount of research going on into the elephants, into the buffalo, into diseases, into all sorts of things. There's a whole division in the Kruger National Park called the Scientific Services Division, and they are dedicated to researching different parts of the Kruger National Park's ecology. So they are investigating absolutely everything, from those elephants that we saw right up to, now I'm going to ask David to do something very difficult for a cameraman. I'm going to ask you to try and film one of these butterflies, all the way down to the size of these little butterflies. I'm just going to try and find one that'll sit still for us. Come on, Dave. There we go. And that, everybody, will be a familiar butterfly to you, because you get a very similar species in North America. Migrates in huge numbers out of Mexico, if I'm not mistaken. And that is the monarch. This is an African monarch, but you, of course, will get some sort of American version of a monarch. So that goes back to the great question asked about whether we get similar animals. Well, there's something that I suppose could be considered a similar animal. Let us continue a little bit. David, a wonderful follow-up question from you. You say we're going into winter, so do we ever get snow here? David, we don't get snow here, and in fact, there is so little snow, it has never occurred here to the extent that there is no local name for snow. So the local language here is a language called Xitsonga or Shangaan, and because snow has never been seen in this area, there is no word for snow in Shangaan. So the chances of us getting snow here this winter are negligible to zero. We get about, the coldest day of the year last year was 4 degrees Celsius, which is probably just about 40 degrees Fahrenheit. So it's nothing like as cold, I don't think, as it gets there where you are. I'm not sure how cold it gets where you are, but I suspect quite a lot colder than it does here. Your latitude, of course, is that much higher than ours. So we're going to just slowly ease our way down this road and see if we can't find one of these leopards. Brian, in the fine tradition of all young men, you are concerned with what is the most deadly thing out here. What is the most deadly predator that we have here? Well, Ryan, I suppose I'm going to change your question slightly and answer you in terms of what animal is the most successful. What predator is the most successful predator? And in terms of number of times it kills per serious hunt, well, I guess the wild dog would be the most successful predator there. Although they don't always catch, they are very efficient hunters, and they tend to have the most success when it comes to catching the antelope. Cheetahs not too bad when they get the opportunity. They of course have things stolen from them, but I guess, you know, lions are pretty big and pretty impressive, and they are the ones that will take the biggest prey. So lions will take out buffalo, sometimes even elephant. Let's go across to Brent and see what he's found.
Welcome back, and I hear you guys are a smart bunch, and you got that spot on correct. It is a porcupine quill. Now, the amazing thing about this porcupine quill is you can't actually even see it with the naked eye, but it is covered in micro barbs. So tiny little hooks. Let's turn down the game drive radio. That hook into something it stabs. So if a lion or a leopard tries to get it, these quills become embedded, and when they try bite and pull them out, these tiny little micro barbs keep it inside. So you'll find lion and leopard will try to avoid porcupines unless they are very, very desperate. Now, despite popular belief, porcupines don't shoot their quills. They'll back themselves into a predator or whatnot that's trying to grab them. So keep turning the sharp end. And then you can see this is the side that sits inside the porcupine, and would probably sit depending to about there. And then this side would be out. And you can see how sharp that is. I mean, it would do some serious damage. Hi, Zach. Zach would like to know how old the Sabi Sands Reserve is. Well, in its current format, it's probably... it dropped fences with the Kruger in 1992, but it has been in existence since the 60s. But it's all privately owned, no government subsidies. It is funded by tourism. So as we're going to try sneak back towards the lions for one last look. I think I actually just drove straight past them like a silly person. Well, Vincent is wondering what is the slowest animal in the reserve. Well, Vincent, that's quite a difficult question, but I would probably think it is the giant land snail. That's slower, much slower than a tortoise. Hop through the gap here. As I said, unfortunately, those lions are still deep in the shade. They might have even moved a little bit further into the shade while we've been gone. Let's just see if we can get you one last view before the end of class. So Savina's wondering, what animal do I most relate to? And Savina, that's a difficult one. But probably, well, my favorite animal is the African wild dog, so it's probably that. They're very hyperactive and full of speed, a lot like me. I tend to have, I think the technical term is ADD or something like that. So that's probably the one I relate most to. Brian, you got a view through there over my shoulder? Brian's fighting trees. Here we go. You can see they've moved a bit deeper into the bush. So Brad is wondering, do lions have a favorite prey? Oh, look at that. Isn't that beautiful, that dappled light coming through? Well, Brad, all predators are opportunists, so anything that they might happen upon would be their favorite for the moment. But these lions in particular are very fond of buffalo. Look, it's just landed right here. A little Cape turtle dove. You would have heard that calling. Oh, he's just behind the bush, isn't he? There he is. Landed right next to us. Didn't see us sitting in the thicket. A little Cape turtle dove. Brad's also wondering what the average age of these lions is. Brad, they'll vary. The youngest is about 3, and the oldest is probably closing in on 10. Now, in the wild, a lioness is not going to live much beyond 15. 14, 15 is sort of the longest a lion will live in the wild. In captivity, they can live longer, but this particular pride, as far as I understand, is from 3 years old to around 10 years old. So they're only going to get moving when it gets cooler, and they're going to start hunting in the dark. So speaking of things that lions eat, zebra and giraffe both form part of their prey species, and Anna's wondering how often do we see them. Well, Anna, zebra we probably see every day, giraffe every second or third day. Now, a lot of the prey species will move in and out of areas. So while we're sitting in a thicket, we quite often drive through spider webs. And Blake is wondering, what kind of spiders do we get in Africa? And the answer is lots, Blake. And unfortunately, I don't think we've got enough time to go through all of them, but I'll give you a few. We've got black widows, brown widows, also called black or brown button spiders. We've got violin spiders, baboon spiders, which are massive, like our African version of a tarantula. But we're going to have to cover spiders in a little bit more detail next time, Blake. And don't forget, you guys are more than welcome to join us in Safari when you're at home as well. Just pop on, log on, and come join us. But for Mrs. Clark's class from Cox High School, got it right this time. It's been wonderful having you on the back of the vehicle, and we can't wait to have you back with us again soon. So wasn't that fun taking Cox High School on safari this afternoon? So we're going to leave these lions to be lazy, and we'll be back a little bit later. I think we're going to go have a quick squiz for the Queen of Djuma Arathusa. While we do that, James has got some pachyderms to entertain you.
And we, much like I think Brent's idea, is to come into this southeastern section of the reserve and see if we can't find Karula. She was found heading north this morning from the tree in which we last saw her, and so we're going to search around here. But on the way, of course, we're going to look at all the interesting things that we find. And this bull, young bull, has provided us with a great amount of entertainment today. Just hang on a sec. You can hear a Franklin alarm calling behind us. Where is it? It is behind us. It's not particularly panicked, but let's just keep an ear out for it while we look at this bull. We saw him this morning, and he was fighting with other bulls, trying to kind of assert himself. And we know it's him, of course, because he's got that very floppy ear, which is quite interesting. And he's, I don't know, he's quite an interesting one because his shoulders stick out a bit more, I think, than some of the other elephant bulls I've seen. And he almost looks kind of older than his years. And I wonder if that ear, as quite apart from being a sort of failure of cartilage, isn't perhaps also a slight deformity. And he's just giving us a little bit of a shake and just saying, don't come any closer. Okay, everybody, we're going to move quickly because those Franklin are now, so they just went off the ground. They were shouting again. And then I've just heard them fly off the ground there. Sorry, Mr. Elephant, I don't mean to disturb you, nor do I wish to cast aspersions on you. We're just going to quickly go and look through here and see if there isn't a leopard lurking. Just watch the road for tracks. The Franklins were just inside this kind of thicket area here, calling. don't see any leopard tracks. We'll just do a quick loop here. Here I'm going again here. Let's just listen quickly. No, that's a starling. Some other francolins calling a long way away from here. I'm not sure. Anyway, I think let's continue. I'm going to leave that elephant because he was just getting slightly uncomfortable. I think he felt slightly exposed without the mates that he had today. So let's ease down here. And while we drive, of course, in a very loud vehicle, which is Jigger. Joe Welch, nice question about what animal makes the loudest noise out here. I'm just going to keep an eye on the ground here. Joe, the loudest noise, I suppose, must come from the lions. The lion sound travels, well, to our ears anyway. The lion sound travels probably up to 5 kilometers. We were able to hear lions from, and they are probably able to hear each other from a much greater distance than that even. So probably lions. Leopards travel pretty far, and all the big cats, of course, have that unique vocal apparatus where the voice box, unlike ours, ours is kind of fixed into the trachea or into the throat. Theirs is, the bone that holds ours in a cat is cartilage, and so it allows it to vibrate up and down, and that gives it its tremendous volume. But of course, elephants are able to communicate over vast distances. I mean, some people will tell you over sort of 50 kilometers, which is about 30 miles. And whether or not that's true, I don't think it's ever been proven. But they can communicate over vast distances using something called infrasound. Now, while we are almost unable to hear infrasound at all because the frequency is too low for us, elephants can hear it at enormous distances. And so I would say it's difficult to say what is the loudest. I mean, to us, certainly I would say a lion makes probably the loudest noise, although an elephant can make some very loud trumpeting noises. Those are very loud indeed. But maybe an elephant's infrasound is even louder than all of that. Very nice question, Joe. Thank you for that. Just going to ease into the drainage line here, as much as Jigger is able to ease. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about where Karula was, and then I'll tell you what our plan is. So we'll stop in the shaded wonderment of this drainage line or dry area. You can see thick trees along here. Excellent. Sorry about that, everybody. I've just come out of the drainage, nice and shady, but we've come back into the sun. So I was just saying this is excellent. Now, Karula was basically directly over where I'm pointing.
So it seems like Commander Bond is on a secret mission to battle gremlins this afternoon. So we are slowly moving our way south down the western edge of the Mwati River system. Now, the last place Queen Karula was seen was to the sort of southeast of us. Oh, and there's an elephant. Lots of ellies around today. We're going to bypass this one for now and keep heading towards where Queen Karula was. Now, the amount of elephants about at the moment might make finding her tracks quite difficult. So while we've got good light, let's go have a look. So she came down the marula tree you saw her in with James, and she made her way apparently north from there. So, knowing the Queen of Djuma like we do, we know she could have quite easily changed direction. So that's why we're just going to do a slow check in a big wide area around that block she was last seen in. So don't forget to ask us questions about what's out here. You can do that via email. Pop me an email on questions@wildearth.tv, or you can use the hashtag Safari Live on Twitter. I know Karula likes this area, so I just want to double check that she hasn't come this way. We bypassed an Ellie, and rightly so, because James has got some more to show you.
Every bush we drive past today has got an elephant behind it, in it, eating it, or about to sort of stand on it and destroy it. And it really is very, very pleasant indeed to have this many elephants around the place. Not sure why suddenly there's so many. Because equally they can just disappear again and we don't see them for a couple of days and sometimes even a month. Anyway, we hope that they hang around. So I don't know how much of what I last said came to you before we went off air, but we're now due north of where Karula was, probably about 500 meters or so, 300 or 1,500 feet or so. And so we'll just keep an eye out for her and her tracks. Oh, look at that little one getting very cross. Looks like he's getting irritated trying to pick something, picking something out. And Pamela, you're interested in whether Asian elephants could survive here. Pamela, one of the major differences between an Asian and a, well, I mean, the short answer is I don't know, but the long answer is the Asian elephant is different from the African elephant in that it has got much smaller ears. Now, one of the main reasons that it has much smaller ears, of course, is that it doesn't need to cool itself quite as much as the African elephant does. The African elephant lives out in the sun, and while it is very hot in parts of Asia, they usually live in the jungles and forests where there's a lot of shade, which of course they don't have here. So I think they would probably struggle in as much sun as we have here. That's the first thing. Then secondly, one of the things that has made the African elephant poor from a domestication point of view is that they eat so much. They need to eat more than their Indian counterparts because their Indian or Asian counterparts live in areas where the nutritional value of the plants is probably that much higher than the nutritional value of the plants here because the soil is better. And that means that digestive systems are different. And so I don't think that an Asian elephant would do particularly well out here. They probably wouldn't do too badly, but I don't think that they would live here in a state of bliss. Let's sneak a little bit further forward. Now, we have seen today at least 100 elephants or so. Brent, who was out this morning, saw 100 elephants in one herd today. And Benil, I think is your name. You want to know how many herds, how many elephants typically in a herd? Well, Benil, the answer is that there is no real typical number. I suppose around here in the Kruger National Park, the average number would be about 15 or so. But you can get huge herds of up to 100, like Brent had today. This is a large cow over here that we can see. And I'm just easing my way into the middle of the herd here so So we're going to watch their behavior very carefully to see that they are comfortable with us being here. If they are not, we will extract out of here. That means we'll reverse quickly. There we've got a young cow. Okay, Bill, this is a very nice question you've asked, and I'm hoping it's going to be answered by the animals we're looking at now. We don't have a great view. All of them are in quite thick bush right now, but they are talking to each other. And you say the other night you were watching the Djuma Dam cam, and there were a whole lot of elephants coming past, or they were drinking or something like that, and you thought you heard a very loud cat growling. You say, could it possibly have been the elephants? Bill, I would say more than likely. If you are unfamiliar with the sound that elephants make, yes, you can be completely confused by what they are making. And interestingly, Bill, this is a great kind of way to bring this up. The sounds that the dinosaurs made in the Jurassic Park films largely came from elephants. So, yes, they do make kind of predator-type sounds, loud wailings, and they do make that infrasonic growling sound, the top end of which we are able to hear. So I suspect quite strongly, if there were elephants there and it was a kind of growling noise, it would definitely have been the elephants that you heard. Very nice question, that. Thank you for it. I enjoy questions like that because I guess it gets to clear up a whole lot of misconceptions. Look at this little fellow. He's just showing us how very strong he is, eating his little one piece of grass, and this bull will just give him a little bit of a shove. And that, of course, is part of growing up, isn't it? It's how little young men learn, young boys learn from older, bigger, more mature bulls, or adult men, as the case may be with humans. And Miss Lynn, while we're sitting here in the middle of a herd of elephants, you want to know if I ever get nervous. Yes, Miss Lynn, I do. And it's important to remain on the edge of nervousness. You don't want to ever be scared, but you do want to just be wary, because you can get very complacent around these animals. And what you'll find is that can be a big mistake, because they will indicate to you if they're not comfortable, but their moods can change, and we never know what exactly it is that causes their mood changes. And so I'm always wary, always around elephants. These ones are giving no indication of discomfort at all, but that could change. So while I'm not nervous right now, I'm certainly wary, and I'm looking and I'm observing exactly what their behavior is and how comfortable or uncomfortable they are. Move a little bit forward, see if we can't get another view of this little fellow who's thrashing away at little bushes to show how strong he is. There he is. Look. Hello, little fella. So, Miss Lynn, here's a really good example of what could happen if that elephant perhaps became really distressed by us. That would create a reaction, possibly from his mother, which in turn would create a reaction from some of the other animals. So while it's very amusing to watch this little elephant dance around the place and show us how big and strong he is, it is important to watch the reactions of the other elephants in this herd at the same time. It's really quite funny, isn't it? Very complicated questions coming through today. It's wonderful. They're exactly the kind of questions we like. Betty, you're looking down the road there. You're seeing a whole lot of sort of sandy-coloured soil, and you want to know a little bit about what kind of soils we have here. Well, Betty, while these elephants sort of go into the thick bush, We have granite-derived soils, okay, so the underlying geology here is granite, almost exclusively at Djuma, and that means that the crest areas that we're on now, you can see we're on the top of a ridge crest, are sandy, like you say, sandy soils. Then as you go down the slope towards the drainage line areas, so the soil will get slightly more clayey, and into the drainage lines, and on the fringing the drainage lines, or dry riverbeds, we'll have sort of sodic areas, which are areas where there's a lot of clay in the soil. And those are the kind of two major soil types. And you say what kind of trees and grass as well. I mean, there's probably a tree list of over 200 or 300 here, and a grass list of pushing at least 100. So I'm not going to try and go through all of those, Betty. But you say, does the sandy soil make it easier for the elephants to push over some of the trees? Yes, I imagine that it does, absolutely. But the trees here have adapted to dealing with that kind of thing, and so they cope with elephants pushing them over. Let's ease along the road here. There's some wonderful, wonderful inquiries coming through. I'm just going to get us into a position that we can hopefully view one of these elephants, or all of them. Lots of them. There's one suckling there, Dale. Dale, you say, can elephants smell fear? No, they can't smell fear. I don't believe that fear smells, Dale. But what does change is your body language. So when they say that an animal can smell fear, I don't believe that's true. I believe they can absolutely read body language, however. Perhaps there are some animals that are able to smell adrenaline. When you are afraid, you get an adrenaline shock through your system, and maybe there are some animals that are able to smell that. But I think it's body language that they sense. So, for example, a dog that is about to bite you, if you show fear there, well, chances are you're going to get bitten. With elephants, I don't believe it's the same. For me, I feel like the elephants are constantly communicating. They're constantly giving off a vibe of, or an energy of how they feel. They're constantly telling us how they feel. I don't think they give a continental whether we're afraid or not. I think they do, however, give a continental that we are sensitive to how they are feeling. And in much the same way as we are able to tell if they're afraid, because their body language changes, it wouldn't surprise me if they can tell whether we can, if we're afraid or not. I don't think in just about every single case, I don't think that would induce them to behave differently around us. Nice question, that. These are great questions coming through. Thank you, everybody. Keep them coming. #Safari Live, questions at wildearth.tv. Of course, it is now blinding afternoon, beautiful light, slowly softening. You may have even noticed from when we started the drive, the light is turning from that very pale kind of washed out yellow to a much more softly golden orange yellow, and that will progress as the afternoon goes on. And Joan, you're wondering if as the night comes, will the animals get afraid? Will some of them show fear? I'm sure they get afraid, Joan. Whether they register it as fear or not, I don't know. So, for example, an impala, which will go and live on a clearing so that it can see what might want to come and eat it, and everything wants to eat an impala, do they register in their minds that they're feeling fearful? I don't know if they do or not. Are they stressed? Yes. Is there adrenaline coursing through their bodies more at night than there would be in the day? Quite probably, yes. Do they feel fear at night? It's an interesting one. I don't know if they feel fear. That's a really nice question. There's a tiny little elephant on the road ahead. Let's go a little bit further forward. So many lovely, pretty flowers all over the place as a result of these late rains that we had. Dave, does it look greener than it did when you left?
Slightly, yeah.
And it is amazing, Dave's just been away for 2 weeks, and the difference in vegetation, if it's in the winter, it'll look much drier, in summer it'll look much greener, but it doesn't stay the same in the 2 weeks that you go on leave. really are all over this road. Here's one here, right to our right-hand side. Now you can hardly see her, but she's only about 20 meters away from us, 60 feet. Feeding on the grass underneath the trees, which generally is quite nutritious. You can hardly see her, you can hardly hear her, and she's feeding away an enormous 4.5-ton animal. Oh, she's huge. That's a big cow, everyone. 4.5 tons or so, probably 9 feet at the shoulder. Look. Okay, she's coming through the bush here. There you go. Did you hear that? That was that growling sound. I wonder if you managed to hear it. It was just amazing. It was quite loud, but often these microphones don't pick them up. Now this cow is interesting because she is tuskless. She has no tusks. And in a bull that might make them a little bit more irascible or irrational, but in the cows, not generally. Now, I don't really know where to look, but I'm going to ask Dave to stay on this cow, but also to tell you that there is a baby in front of us that is lying down on the road. Let's just watch this cow. She's quite close to us. She's clearly still lactating. Her young calf is behind her. And I'm going to talk very quietly now. In fact, let's just be silent and listen to the sound of her breaking the grass and the trees and the scraping of the thorns on her skin. So special. Sorry, I know I can't start the engine now, everyone, because I think it might make them a little nervous. So we're just going to sit here and enjoy. So sorry about the aerial in the middle of your picture. You heard that one. You heard that young elephant in the middle of the block here shouting. And if you go and watch Jurassic Park again, you'll hear that sound. Musical. You want to know if they give birth lying down or standing up? I've actually forgotten that. Musical. I think, if I'm not mistaken, they do it lying down. There's a big bull coming through here. That's why she reacted. I might have to drive off a bit. I just want to see what his intentions are. He's looking to mate. He's in must. He's in full must. You can see he's dripping. Look at this fellow here. We are surrounded by elephants now. Not interested in us, he's much more interested in the ladies. This is amazing. I can't start the car, everyone. So you'll just have to look past the aerial. But what you can see, there's his dripping urine, and that means he is in must. He's ready to mate. Heightened testosterone. We don't want to irritate him. And I can smell him now. Very sweet, sickly smell of a must-bull elephant. That's a 6-ton animal, 10 feet at the shoulder. He's a big boy. Gonna move a little bit. The elephant behind us got a little bit uncomfortable. You just stand still there. There we go. Let's just move a little bit forward. Just to increase the distance. We don't want him to react to us. The cow is now also coming down the road just towards us a little bit. She was irritated by him. He irritated her because he suggested lewd things to her and she didn't like that. There's another very, very tiny elephant through here. That's brand new. Okay, we're going to leave these elephants, everybody. Let's go across to Brent. And he's also got elephants.
So we've got a single Ellie bull here. Difficult to see from this angle whether he's in must. And it looks like there's a marula that he's pushed over. And you can see how he's now feeding off what was once the top of quite a large marula tree. And I know James has just explained why the Ellies are able to push down such large trees. But a lot of people might see this as damage, but it's not. It gives the other animals access to that tree as well. So Inyala and Kudu and Pala will all be able to feed off those leaves now. Hey, big boy. Just him munching away. Tatia would like to know, why do elephants sort of whip the grass around in their trunks before feeding? Now, it's because they're trying to remove the dust off it, so they don't like eating sand like we do. We don't either, so they whack it around to beat the sand off it. He's systematically destroying that big marula. So, of course, an elephant in must loses an incredible amount of moisture in a day. And Bob's wondering, how much more does an elephant bull in must have to drink? Well, Bob, I presume probably about double, so what he normally drinks, just to make up for that loss of water from the dripping penile sheath. So as we're sitting here, lots of Ellies around. The lions are still absolutely flat cat. And Brian and I have been umming and ahhing about whether we take the long road down to the east and go have a look at Cheetah Plains. So why don't you guys decide for us? Take away the responsibility, so if we don't find anything, it's not our fault. So, should we go to Cheetah Plains or shouldn't we? Send us an email or use the hashtag Safari Live on Twitter. So if we go there and we don't see any animals, we won't have any of the blame. But we're going to leave this big boy for now, let him continue to munch on his marula tree. Brian is wondering, not Brian on the back, another Brian, are there any edible parts to trees here? Yes, Brian, there are quite a few different edible trees and tree parts. We have the fruit of the marula tree is actually very tasty. Fortunately, we didn't get too much fruit this year. And I'm going to see if I can spot a little ziziphus or buffalo thorn. They're quite edible. There's a marula tree we're passing under. Lots of different edible trees, in fact, but various different parts are edible rather than the whole tree. Guarri bushes, grivias, the fruits are edible. See if you spot a buffalo thorn, Brian. So, apparently Cheetah Plains is won by a landslide, so we're happy to oblige. We will head down towards the vast open plains of the cheetah, and who knows, fingers crossed, we might see a cheetah, or an ostrich, or nothing. But we will try, And I will keep a lookout for edible plants for you, Brian, as we move on. But it is a spectacular evening. What's going on there? I just saw one impala dash at incredibly high speed across the road. I think he's just playing. He's stopped now. Could have been being chased or chasing another male. But looking for lions, isn't there a story I know about, I don't know where, no, there we go, a porcupine and a rhino. Now, there's an old, sorry, there's an old, if I remember it's Zulu or Indabele folk story about why a black rhino spreads its dung. So white rhino will quite often just sort of lay boluses of dung, whereas the black rhino will kick it out open. And many moons ago, the black rhino cut open his side while walking through the bush on some very sharp thorns. And he went to Porcupine and said, "My dear friend Porcupine, I have managed to do myself an injury. Would you be kind enough to lend me a quill that I'm going to be able to stitch up my injury in my side?" And Porcupine, being the ambivalent creature it was, said, "Oh, my dear friend Black Rhino, but of course, but please don't lose them. They're very special to me and my protection against lion and leopard." And Black Rhino said, "Well, of course, dear friend Porcupine, I shall not lose your quill." And Rhino managed to successfully stitch his injury, and then he was walking back to Porcupine with the quill in his mouth, and he happened to see some luscious brand new acacia leaves, and he got distracted. He was like, "Oh, acacia!" And he swallowed the quill. And to this day, the black rhino spreads his dung to see if he can find Porcupine's quill and return it. And he also avoids Porcupine to this day for the guilt of swallowing the quill. Oh, lovely little group of impala and baby waterbucks there. Where's mom's? There's about 4 baby waterbuck here. A little creche of baby waterbuck with the impala. Big herd of impala. And lots of little waterbucks. So Brian was wondering, now I've lost my quill again. Be careful, I'll stab myself. Brian was wondering, are quills used as tools for anything? As a matter of fact, they are. Historically, the first European settlers used to use them as pens. Used to cut open the quill to use as a pen. I still use quills as a tool, and it is a very effective fishing float. So very effective, nice and buoyant, and when the fish bite, they stand up straight, as you can see. Oh, well, let's leave these impalas to be. So there we go. See, you take something and you drill a little hole through the middle of the porcupine quill, and you put your fishing line through it, and when the fish bites, and very effective, especially if you're fishing in rapids and things like that. They slide down very nicely. I have boxes and boxes of porcupine quills. Another very interesting use for porcupine quills is just for decoration. They make lampshades out of them. And you must be very, very careful if you ever come to Africa when buying some of those curios. You've got to think, where does the porcupine quill come from? And how many poor porcupines have been caught to make that beautiful lampshade. On the other hand, I have a very good friend of ours. She collected porcupine quills for 15 years and to build the front of her dresser. So where all the drawers are, there's just cut and patterns of porcupine quills. But it took her 15 years of picking up quills in the bush to be able to do that. So I tend to not have that patience. You tend to use them for fishing, so I only need one or two at a time. Okay, let's carry on. And while we move, Claire Bear in Pretoria would like to know, why don't we see hartebeest or eland here? Well, Claire, there's a possibility we might see eland. I have seen them not too far to the north from here in the Timbavati before. But hartebeest is an arid species. They only occur sort of further to the west and to the south of us. It's a bit too wet for hartebeest. There is a hartebeest, a member of the hartebeest family, that does occur in the Kruger, and I have seen once in the Sabi Sands, and that's the Sesame. But this isn't ideal country for them. Actually, on Jamie and my last trip through the Kruger, we actually saw a herd of Sesame, but way up north, near Punda Maria. So we are on the road towards Cheetah Plains. We're about to go through the Mulwanini drainage, which is a big dip. So we might lose you as we go through there. So before we lose you, let's jump on with Jamesy and see what he's up to.
We are on the Leadwood Road, everyone, and that means that we're in the vicinity where Karula was. Now, I'm sorely tempted to drive straight into where she was, but I do know that she moved, and I'm pretty sure she was on the hunt, A, and B, I'm pretty sure that if she hasn't caught something, she would have probably headed back south to see her babies, to suckle them a bit. If she has killed, she's just about at the age where she might start bringing the cubs to a kill, or they are just about at that age, but she might just eat and then go back to them and suckle them in whatever lair she has left them in. It's a nice word, that lair, leopard's lair. Okay. Hoping to find a leopard's lair eventually. Now, Katya, you were watching this morning, I think, and many of you will have noticed how a leopard sometimes walks with its tail up, and it's very white underneath, and it flicks it from side to side like this. And then sometimes they walk with it down, especially if they're stalking. Now, what happens is that... Sorry, the radio is going crazy in my ear. What happens is that the birds, when they see a leopard, will start alarm calling. And Katya, you want to know if the sort of surrender signal that a leopard gives, often a leopard, when the birds do start alarm calling, will lift the tail up, put that white feathered or whitey sort of looks like a feather boa in the air and flick it from side to side. And Katya, you want to know if it really works. Do the birds genuinely stop alarm calling when that happens? And Katya, yes, they do. Not all of them, but certainly I have had a noticeable difference in bird calls as she puts that up to say, please don't alarm call at me, I don't intend to eat you. And I've also noticed them relax the tail completely, and as the birds start alarm calling, lift it up immediately. And it does seem to work. It is just bizarre. I'm just easing my way along this road to see if she didn't perhaps pop out. I see no further tracks of her. But that is not surprising. I mean, she is not a large, heavy, galumphing animal. Maybe she's got a kill just inside this block here. stone in the road. Uman, an interesting question that I cannot answer, and that is one of the best kinds of questions, of course, because it means that I hope that somebody will be able to answer it for me. You want to know about cat sleeping patterns and whether they dream or not? Well, those of you who have got domestic cats at home will probably be able to tell whether they do some form of dreaming or not. I don't know. Dogs, certainly we know dogs dream. Do cats dream? I don't know. Do they go into some kind, do they have the same sort of sleep patterns that we do? The deep sleep, the REM sleep and that sort of stuff. I really don't know, man. I assume it's different from ours. They don't go into the same deep sleep that we do because they can't afford to. A lot of the animals out here, of course, are moving all the time, and for an animal to go to sleep for 6 or 7 or 8 hours at a time into a deep sleep is a recipe for disaster, because normally they will be discovered and then probably devoured shortly thereafter. So unless you're as big as a lion, you can't really afford to sleep like that. Just going to look here quickly. Some tracks. And Katya, on the same line as that one, when and how do impala sleep? Well, Katya, impala do sleep, but they sleep in relay. So you'll never find a herd of impala where everyone's asleep. So you'll drive onto a clearing at night, say you find 20 or 30 impala, and 20 of them are just lying down. 10 of them will be up, grazing, looking around the place. Then as they lie down, the others will wake up, eat. But they're always awake for a little bit, looking around, awake for a little bit, looking around. They're never completely asleep. Just get out of the way here. There's a vehicle coming past. I'm just quickly getting an idea of what's going on. I'm just listening, sorry. Brent is yakking away on the radio. Oh dear. Orbs, I have checked Leadwood, I didn't come up with anything there, and apparently she was mobile north from last position. Here comes Aubrey now, and he is going to hopefully, no, that's not Aubrey in the slightest. Ah, yeah. Jane kwa la. Ni apui. Okay. Minantlanda ku fambale. Okay. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. How are you all? Are you behaving?
Of course.
Good. Well done. As you were. We're going to keep on our search here. Warm. All right. It's always slightly awkward when people don't know that you're live on air, of course, and they start talking to you. I'm considering going in here to actually have a look for Karula. So I think what we'll do is we'll go, there's another little entrance to the north here, or at least to the east, and we'll go in there and sort of wind our way down. There's a fire break that runs just inside this block, and we'll drive along there and see if we can't pick up tracks of Karula. You may easily have crossed this road during the day, and that's because nobody would have seen it, because it is a main road, so people do drive up and down it quite often. And by main road, I mean within the reserve. I don't mean it's a national road. That's obviously guests, traffic, and staff transport, and food deliveries, and that sort of thing for Chitra, and then Cheetah Plains, and then in Coral, further to the east of that, will come along this very road. Anyway, let's check out what's going on here. Could easily be in here somewhere on a kill, she could easily be back somewhere else. That big bull that we saw before I left you last, he followed us down the road a bit, and I thought I would do a bit of an experiment with him, and I did it because you hear a lot of legend around here, and you hear a lot of things that are supposedly taken as fact. And there are two great examples of what I'm going to tell you. The first thing is that people tell you, well, if an elephant turns and faces you, don't start the engine and drive off, because you'll just encourage it to chase you. Now, I've always believed that to be utter nonsense. And well, it might happen every so often that elephant, that huge bull, as you linked away from us, he started to follow us down the road, and then he pulled off to the side, and so I started the engine, and I started to drive away from him. And he took a few steps alongside with us, and then as we increased the space, he stopped, and he relaxed, and he turned to face the cow that he had been looking at before. So that was quite nice for me, because I've always thought that the notion that I should sort of challenge an elephant by revving at it or revving towards it is not always the best option. Yes, it might sometimes have to happen. That hole in the air elephant, for example, I did have that experience with. But generally, animals will move away if you can increase the distance and the space between them and you. The second great example of this, of course, was an article I've just read, and it was sent to us by a wonderful viewer. And the article was about wild dogs. Now, you may have heard the question asked just before we carry on. I'm just going to give David a treat on his return back from leave. There you are, David. This is not a particularly beautiful flower.
Well, thank you.
But it does smell magnificent. What does it smell of?
It's quite sweet.
It is, yes. Citrusy? Citrusy.
I would say.
And it's called the flaky thorn acacia, everybody. I will now probably have a major sinus inflammation after I've inhaled all of that pollen. Anyway, it's just too nice not to smell. So it is a delicious sort of sweet, citrusy orange smell from Acacia exuvialis, the flaky thorn. There it is. And yes, we do get more beautiful flowers than that. But this one has very, very delightful smell that is almost unparalleled. Delicious. So, my other story was about wild dogs. And a viewer sent us a wonderful article because we've been telling people, of course, that wild dogs have an 80% hunting efficiency. They're the most endurance athletes. They work as a team. They work in relays when they hunt. And of course, very few of us have actually ever seen this. And it turns out there's quite a good reason for that. And that reason is that it doesn't actually really happen. So some clever researchers put a whole lot of collars on wild dogs, collars with GPS markers that then took all sorts of clever readings. And what those clever readings did was to show that although wild dogs are 73% more, or can gain 73 times the amount of energy they expend on a hunt, they seldom work as a team. They very often kill on their own. They have a 16% success rate. That's lower than a cheetah's success rate. But what makes them efficient is that they are able to do a lot of different hunts. So they won't follow through on a hunt and fail. They quickly realize that they're going to fail and then stop. And so there are all sorts of misnomers going on out here, and it's great to clear those up, especially with the amount of collective knowledge that you all have. Let's go across to Cheetah Plains, where Brent Leo Smith is exploring the vast wonderland that is the plains.
So, welcome to Cheetah Plains. At your request, we're just heading down the northern boundary. Hello, hello.
How are you?
Good, thanks to you for.
Good.
How's everything?
Quiet.
Quiet, okay.
Yeah.
Lutho, I just think almost. Yeah, next to the kaya. Huh?
There is a Madonna and my father in Ghana, but there.
Kashan. Okay, Sham.
Maybe later they
Maybe.
must come.
Okay.
Chap.
Cheers, Avo. Good luck. Bye, everyone. There we go. That's Harley from Chitwa. And we're just passing on the northern boundary of Cheetah Plains. And as Harley moves his way out, as far as I'm aware, we are the only car in the whole of Cheetah Plains, which I'm quite excited about. Feeling quite spoilt and a little bit selfish. I mean, let's keep it all to ourselves on this sunset safari. So last night, just before the end of the sunset party, Brian and I heard 2 nightjars that I think would be new ones for everyone's bird lists. And Marilyn in Montana is saying, please try find us the square-tailed nightjar. And he's the one that, as a kid, we used to call the generator bird. And he changes gears and changes pitches, so it sounds like a little engine running. It's like, and the other one, which is actually the first time I've heard it in the northern Sabi Sands, was the freckled nightjar, and he sounds like a small Jack Russell. Bow wow, bow wow, bow wow. So hopefully, as it comes towards dusk, we have the opportunity to find maybe one or both of those nightjars. So Brian, who's in Toronto, would like to know, how can certain animals and birds eat venomous snakes and not be harmed by the venom? Well, in certain cases they don't eat the head, but in most cases they do. Now, if they don't have any ulcers or cuts in their gullet or in their stomach acids will just break down the venoms before they get into the bloodstream. In other cases, or say civet, for example, that eat millipedes, that can be highly venomous if you're a small animal, their pancreas releases a special amylase that breaks down the hydrogen cyanide in the millipede into a harmless property. So there are different ways, some of them chemical, like that in case of the millipede. Okay, we're going past 3 in a row pan. It's been a little bit quiet of late. And the Ellies, when I came with Alex during the day, we were coming to do something at the repeater. The Ellies had literally dug their own little spot in the mud right here. What did you spot, Brian? Oh, sorry. There we go. That was dug by Ellies just the other day. They did that to have a nice mud bath in the middle of the day. Now, there's always a chance that these cheetah could move back. And we're going to go have a look along those vast open sections. There is apparently a Birmingham boy that I think you saw with Jamie this morning, and a lioness of unknown origins, but probably a Styx lioness, lying up on the Mala Mala side. So hopefully they do start traversing north. So another great thing that we see at Cheetah Plains that has got everyone very excited, in particular Mike, our big birder from Florida. He's like, let's go find the ostriches. Every time I see them, it blows my mind. They are incredibly cool, and we did start seeing a bit of a show of that male ostrich coming into breeding season. So that red on his shins and on his beak, it's going to become more pronounced as he gets closer into breeding season, and maybe he was following that female. And they do have that amazing, intricate mating dance that they do, and hopefully we will be able to witness that. about to come out towards the first of those big open soda carriers. Ready to explode out of the woodland into the ground. Always a very exciting time. Tony says, let's rather find some crocodiles, please. Tony, I don't think Cheetah Plains is the place for crocodiles. There are no big permanent water holes here. Oh, I've never done that road. Brian, should we do a road we've never done? Have you ever done that road?
I think so.
Okay. Who knows what lies down? And I'm going to try to find out what the name of the unknown road is. The unknown road is called Hornbull Nest Road. Definitely haven't done this one yet. Exciting times. New road. Now, will the Hornbull's Nest... Oh, it has provided us with the Quran. Red-crested Quran. Oh, sorry, Brian. I thought you had it. Slightly smaller than the black-bellied bustard, but does look a little bit similar. And the males at the moment, actually I've seen them twice while we were down here working on that repeater, doing their suicide display. So they fly directly into the sky after calling that. They close their wings and they plummet to the ground. And that's all to impress the ladies. Very still bird, and that's one of their main defenses, like as in a lot of the ground nesting birds. Now, can you believe that that little guy there has a concealed red crest that pops up at the back? It'll pop up when he displays. They prefer woodland like this, which is a bit thicker than the black-bellied bustard, which prefers a bit more open areas. See, it doesn't have that black line down the front of the neck like the black-bellied bustard, but it does indeed have a black belly. I was hoping it might give us a little display. Strangely enough, not this particular vehicle, but one a little bit older. As soon as you started it, there's a very sort of a whine in the starter motor before you keyed ignition, and it used to cause these guys to display immediately, which was quite a neat little trick when you were guiding. So this is his call. Yeah, like click, 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 click. He's going to get sort of an advert. There we go. That's the one that you hear most often. He's not buying it. Anyway, let's keep moving towards the plains. We'll keep a lookout for bomb-dropping birds. So, well, let's see what Hornbill's Nest Road provides us with. Now, in the same family, but much bigger, is the Corey bustard. And Monkey Man is wondering, do we have a chance of seeing Corey bustard now that we traverse Cheetah Plains? There is a slightly better chance, Monkey Man. I think they have been seen here before, so there is always a good chance that they'll be seen there. I know they get seen in eastern Torchwood and northeastern Buffalo's Hook quite a bit, so it'll be really exciting if we do manage to see one of those. They are also the world's heaviest flying bird, so a very big bird indeed. So interesting, slightly more open than some of the other crest roads, this Hornbill's Nest Road, and it doesn't look like it's a very long road before we reach the southern boundary, which will then lead us and return to the east towards the vast open plains. There we go. So just over this crest is that first of those really big sodic areas. Look at that, this light is just perfect. I'm really hoping we find something out in that open area to just bathed in golden light. Survey is wondering, are there any rare fruits that can be eaten in the bush, and what is their benefits? Well, there are a few rare fruits that can be eaten, but I don't think any that occur here. Most of the fruits that you can eat are quite readily common, and most of the standard benefits apply. So high marulas, for example, are very high in vitamin C, and so are guarris and monkey oranges, but no particularly rare fruits that have any special benefits. Okay, we're going to silently coast down the hill onto the plain. What can we see? Those vultures or ground hornbills there, Brian? You see what I'm looking at? Now, I heard that those lions were around that dam there. Those don't look like ground hornbills to me. They look like vultures. And vultures on the ground could be good news for us, because it means the lions could be up and moving. You can see a hooded vulture, a white-backed vulture. Let's move forward a skosh and keep our eyes peeled for a kitty cat. Just make sure we're not still just where those vultures are, I think. Do you see something there, Brian? Just see a slightly different colour there. Let's double check. Yes, I can see a male lion. And a lioness. You got him there. There you go. That's the male lion. Probably one of the Birmingham boys. I don't know. They were there this morning with Brian and Jamie. I'm just trying to look behind him. I think I might see. There's a lioness lying out to the front, but we'll move there now. I just want to see. I see something slightly strange behind him. I think there's another male lion. We just can't see it, or you can't see it very well. So just off to the right of him, you see that colour there, Brian? You see what I'm looking at?
I think so.
In the back, in the bush there. I thought I saw a tail flick with the binoculars. It looks like there could be 2 male lions there. And if we roll forward, you stay and just beyond, next to the vultures, on the ground, out in the open. There we go. There we go, there's the lioness just in front of the vultures. Now apparently they killed a sub-adult buffalo there, from what I heard. So it means that the cheetah are probably going to step quite far clear of here. Definitely not the closest lion sighting we've ever had, but still, a cat's a cat. So with those lions lying up in this area, it's unlikely. Oh, look at wildebeest, and he's just spotted them. Panic at the Disco. I think he just saw them. Wait, there we go. He's looking back, and he's even too far. But I even know what he's doing. He's going. And what that means to him is, lion, lion. Where did that come from? Lion. They are silly creatures sometimes, wildebeest. And he probably feels quite safe, having spotted them at a distance. And on a big open plain like that, it's unlikely, and with a full belly as well, that lion is going to be able to get to him. You run, big boy, you run. Now, this is the same wildebeest we see quite often on this particular open area, and I'm tempted to give him a name. What do you think, Brian? I think we should call him Norman. Norman. I don't know why. He just looks like a Norman.
Norman the wildebeest.
Norman the wildebeest. Norman the slightly deranged. Norman the one who spots lions. Norman is not full charge, but a canter across the plains in the opposite direction of those lions at the moment. Hello, Norm. How are you doing, chap? Looking back over his shoulder, making sure he's not being followed. Smart play, Norm. What do you think, Brian? Does he look like a Norman?
Norman, Norm.
Norm. You stay alive now, Norm.
Normie.
Normal Norman the wildebeest. Just listening for a second. Some of those vultures are taking off behind old Norman and landing in that dead tree. That one. So the lions aren't giving them a chance to feed just yet. Here's Norman. So Norman will be the territorial bull of this particular open area, and he'll defend it against other wildebeest, and I'm sure he's quite excited. The rut's about to start, and there's a strong likelihood of some ladies coming for a visit with normal Norman. And of course, in wildebeest world, he's not so normal, because he's holding one of the prime territories. Norm, why are you stopped behind the bush? Let's go forward a skosh. There we go. Putting some valuable distance between him and the lions. He's still checking over his shoulder. Gilly is actually wondering whether wildebeest have cloven hooves or single hooves like a zebra. They are an antelope, which makes them an even-toed ungulate. So they do have cloven hooves, Gilly. So even though they might look a little bit like a cow, they are not. They are an antelope. Now, share a similar ancestor with the hartebeest family. And there we go. Now he's a prime specimen, old Norm. You can see he's got a nice big thick neck, and these short grass plains, even though he isn't inundated with ladies at the moment, are a very good prime territory. Wildebeests are very specialist feeders, and they really like short grass. So now you would not be one of the weaker bulls if you didn't. To take an area like this, this is definitely prime country if you're a wildebeest. You probably find old Norm was heading towards that dam there called Clarendon Dam for a drink when he spotted the occupants at the dam, and the lions, who are probably not the best drinking buddies if you're a wildebeest. Stick to zebra and impala, Norm. So there we go. You can see there's a little midden there. There's quite a lot of his dung there, so that'll be a spot he scent marks regularly, and if we're lucky, he might give us a bit of a roll and a scent mark, and they mark, there we go, he might put his there we go, good old Norm, on cue. So they mark with glands on their feet, on their faces, and also by defecating in little middens around these open areas. So Norman from Orlando says he recalls a song called Gnorman, the GNU. So he says maybe we should call him Gnorman instead of Norman. Norm, I just think you're jealous he's got the same name as you. Normal Norman, I don't know. What do you think, Brian? Stick to normal Norman or go to Gnorman?
Gnorman the GNU.
You like Gnorman the GNU?
I like Norman.
Norman, you are safe. Your name is yours and yours alone for now. And we will change normal Norman to Gnorman the GNU.
Normal Norman.
Gnorman. A bit of a tongue twister. Gnorman the GNU. So Ellen, who's in Arkansas, says she loves the name, but how are we going to identify him in the future? Well, Ellen, he's going to be the male who's almost always on these clearings. Let's try to get a bit closer, see if we can find any identifying features of him. But he's a territorial bull, so this is his patch, and he will be marching around and marking. So there's two territorial GNUs that I've found on cheetah plains. There's Gnorman, who's on the southern side, and then we don't have a name for the other chap, but he's on the west. He lives mostly in Coral though, and only comes across slightly. But he has a very big wildebeest bull, Gnorman. And we'll be approaching him now. What have you spotted over your shoulder, Gnorman? And let's see, maybe he's had a run-in with lions, he's got a nice scar. I'm going to scoot around in front of him. What about Gnormless Gnorman? Here we go. scent marking there with those glands just below his eyes. See how he's rubbing them on that branch. Now let's see if Gnorman's got some identifying features. He's quite dark actually, compared to some of the wildebeest we've seen. He's a very black body. Now, oh yes, you mark that tree. He's still staring into the distance where the lions are. Brian is wondering why Gnorman is alone, and that's because he's protecting this patch of land from other males, because it's going to attract females. So it's a very good patch. There we go, he's on to his next scent marking spot. So he's patrolling his patch. So male wildebeests in this part of the world, unlike the Serengeti where they migrate constantly, are far more stationary. So they'll defend a patch of land like the one we're in at the moment. Now this is a grade A territory, so he's a prime bull. Oh, is that a little growth under his arm there? A little marking. There we go. Here's a pretty distinct little marker that we can identify Gnorman from. Hey, mister. And we can even... Oh, sorry about the head. And you see he's got that very distinct little growth there. I think that's a nice identifying feature for Gnorman. Doesn't look like he's got any lion claw marks on his bottom, so he's obviously quite a smart wildebeest. So I'm pretty sure Gnorman is going to continue on his patrol, scent marking as he goes. And while we do that, let's go back to James for an update.
Starting on there.
Well, oh, here we go. Just popped out right now. We've just got here, everybody. No one was around, and someone's come to say hello. They've all been on the other side. I didn't think they were here. Hooray. So we've come to the hyena den. I promised that I'd come here this morning, and here I am, making good on my promise. Very nice to see them. Of course, they are very excited to see Dave. They told me yesterday that they missed him dreadfully while he was away. And if you listen carefully, you can actually hear that little one going. That's me. That's my impression. Hi, little hyena. Hello. Yes. You had a good day? Sorry, Rebecca, you're going to have to give me that question again. The game drive turned on at the same time. It was Virginia Miller who wanted to see the hyena den. Well, here we are, Virginia, and I'm most pleased that we're here to show you. What I'm going to do, I know Jamie did this the other day, but I'm just going to hang this low down and see if these little pups don't come and see the camera. Now, what we have here is an interesting arrangement. So the 2 December pups are definitely here. The 2 January cubs are definitely here. That's the 2 January ones there, the little ones that you can see. That's a large adult walking by. And then, I don't know who the slightly larger one is. It must be... I imagine it must be November. Hello, survey. You want to know how big the teeth of a hyena are in comparison with a domestic dog. But I guess it depends very largely on the domestic dog, so they. Obviously a Chihuahua, that lamentable addition to the dog family, it has much smaller teeth than a hyena, but it's probably got about the same size teeth, I would guess, as something like a very large, like a big sort of mastiff, maybe even an Irish wolfhound, that sort of size, maybe even larger than that. But remember that a hyena's canines are nothing like the size of a big cat's canines. It's the crushing power of the carnassials, the molars, that give the hyena most of its kind of use. This is fantastic. There's a little hyena right here. So I'd love to know from you, hyena experts, if you agree with me. We've got 2 Decembers, 2 Januaries here. November. You see, I would have said November was probably around this size as this one coming here. You see, that looks like November size to me, and I don't know then who this other one is, unless I've forgotten completely what's going on here. We've got 1 November, 2 Decembers, 2 Januaries, and the one before that, as far as I can remember, was June. So what is happening here, everyone? Unless this is June in front of us, I just think that the November one, no, that must be the case. Sorry, Rebecca, I lost concentration again. You're going to have to give me Tony's question. It sounded like a really good one, and then my adult mind, I'm afraid, forgot it. Not a wonderful sound? Yeah, so we do, Kirsten in the final control reckons that we have got June here, November, 2 Decembers, and 1 January. I think that's what's going on. Oh, it's just so special to spend time here. They go around the other side. We might have to relocate shortly. Just interesting here, Dave, this young hyena here, who is probably June, already much less inquisitive than the youngsters. So he actually, although his name is a bit girly, June, it's a he, used to be just as inquisitive as those other little cubs and is not anymore. And that's because he's kind of approaching adulthood, and much like most of the adults, not really that interested in approaching the vehicles anymore. They just forget that we're an interesting thing and they move on. Now, some of them have gone all the way around. I think what we're going to do is go to the other side quickly. We've got about probably 15 minutes of light here before we'll have to leave them. So let's make the most of that and go around the other side. Hello, Gracie. I'm most excited by your current news, and I want you to tell me exactly what it was like. You said you went to see Jungle Book, I think it was, today in the theatre with your grandmother and your mother, and you got a Happy Meal, which I don't think is very good, but I'm sure it was very delicious, and you got a whole lot of balloons, which I think is excellent. So that sounds marvellous, Gracie. Please tell me, did you enjoy the Jungle Book? Because I, of course, remember watching the Jungle Book when I was about your age. That's 8, obviously. And it was the one before the version that you've seen. It was a lovely, lovely movie. Brilliant story, of course. Originally by Rudyard Kipling. He wrote lots of great stories. And just as I've moved around here, one of them's come back. But let's go around and just have a different view. So I think they're spending more and more time on this side of the den. Tracy, tell me if you enjoyed the film, A, and B, who was your favourite character? My favourite character was Bagheera, the black leopard. You should also ask Brent who his favourite character was, because he also loves the Jungle Book. David, do you have a favourite from Jungle Book?
I like Mowgli.
You like Mowgli. Mowgli, of course, looks quite a lot like Gendre. Gendre has an aversion to washing his hair. It was Geraldine who christened Gendre Mowgli. Just easing here. Brilliant, here we go. Now, Chris Rogue, who's one of the maintainers of the brilliant Facebook group, the Hyenas of Djuma and Arathusa, you say that's exactly what we've got here. 2 Decembers, 2 Januaries, 1 November and 1 June. Great stuff. Now, I think that we have yet to successfully sex exactly the January cubs, and they are now old enough for us to be able to do that if we are able to see their undercarriages at full extension, which of course we might see when an adult comes up to greet them. We're pretty sure that 1 December cub is male and 1 is female. We could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that that's what we've got. And interestingly, I no longer see the white patch on the edge of the December of D1's back left foot. She, I think it was the female, had a white patch on the back left foot, and I have not seen that again. So maybe she's kind of grown out of it. And a very interesting question. Of course, I have said to you that we won't put a light on them. We've got about 15 minutes of light left here, and then we'll probably leave. Deborah, you want to know at what stage we would be prepared to put a light on these hyenas? Deborah, not at the den ever, I don't think. You know, if they're at the den, they're still in a vulnerable state. They live here because they do feel vulnerable, and because they are vulnerable to lions and other hyenas and that sort of thing. So while they're still at the den, you'll find that we won't shine a light on them at all. So once they leave the den, and they're comfortable enough to do that, from about 8 months they'll start travelling with the clan. They will come back every so often, but from about 8 months they'll start travelling with the clan. So I'd say, you know, once they're about a year old, I would be comfortable to put a light on them, and that goes the same for leopard cubs. I'd be prepared to put a gentle light on a leopard cub of a year old that was moving with its mother. It wouldn't bug me to do that, but younger than that, I don't know, it just seems unnecessary. Such a peaceful little scene. This is the best possible way to end a day, of course, with these special hyena that we're so privileged to spend so much time with. And they've got even more special, surrounded as they are by these little glowing, they almost look like natural globes on the edges of the grass, on the ends of the grass stalks. There's feathered chloris grass, which reflect the last embers of the day. It's just very beautiful indeed. It's almost like a sort of hyena fairyland. And we've seen these hyenas approaching the vehicle, of course, and they've come up and they steal oil caps every so often, and they chew on the bumper. And I don't now remember Tony's question. Tony wanted to know if they could bite through a tyre. I guess an adult probably could, yeah. But I don't think that the youngsters could, and I don't think, well, they'd probably give it a bit of a chew, but then quickly realise it tasted pretty foul. Anyway, Ellen, on that vein, you want to know if they ever get into the camp and cause craziness. Well, in terms of our own camp, yes, they sometimes come in if we forget to shut the gate or put the dustbin away, and then they take the dustbin out, and we sort of have to follow the trail of litter to find the dustbin again, sometimes sort of 300 meters from the camp. That is a fairly unpleasant task in the morning. Anyway, if we don't remember to put the dustbin away, that sometimes happens. But Brent has often told you the story, I know, and I'll repeat it here quickly, of Gorgie the hyena. Now, Gorgie the hyena was so named because it was her penchant to arrive in the boma at Londolozi while no one was looking, leap up onto the buffet table and steal an entire wheel of Gorgonzola cheese and then make off with it into the night. It must have made an already fairly foul-smelling breath even more foul, and she probably stole at least 10,000 rands worth of cheese over the course of a 4-week stealing spree. And so she used to cause great consternation within the camp, and I think she also got into the kitchen once, and that's not fun, of course, because a hyena is very sweet at these close distances if they're in the open, but a hyena cornered is not an animal you want to be around. And I think Brent actually went into the kitchen once to try and chase her out, and managed to chase her around a table, kick her in the backside, and once he did that, she turned on him, and he very quickly climbed atop a stainless steel counter and yelled for help. Thankfully, Gorgie went off into the night with whatever it is she had stolen a little earlier. But it doesn't look like butter would melt in these ones' mouths, does it? Now, Bella, you make a very astute observation, and your observation is that the hyenas don't seem to function like a wolf pack where only the alpha pair breeds. It was clear here that a number of females have bred to produce the 3 different generations that we've seen here today. 4 different generations: June, November, December, and January. And you're absolutely right, of course. It is not anything like that of a wolf pack, but remember, a hyena is not closely related to a wolf at all. It is most closely related out here to a mongoose, and then later to a cat, and very, very distantly to the dogs. And the dog that we get out here, the great painted wolf of Africa, the wild dog, the African wild dog, functions in precisely the same way as a wolf pack does. They too have only the alpha pair that breeds. Sometimes a beta pair will breed, but quite often then the alpha will kill those puppies. So that's one of the reasons we refer to hyenas, little ones, as cubs and not as pups, because they are so distantly related to the dogs. Totally different setup here. And there's no alpha pair, there's only a matriarch. So it's a matriarchal society where all the males are subordinate to all the females. And Paul, you're interested in what happens when they're not small enough to fit into their holes. Interestingly, even June, still, I saw her probably about 2 weeks ago going into a hole in the den. So even at, what is that? I mean, that's almost a year old. She's 9 months old. She's able to go into the hole. So I think probably at about a year, Paul. Right, we're going to leave these chaps, everybody. It is starting to get dark. The picture that you can see on your screens is much brighter than reality because of this very clever camera we're using. Let's head across to Brent, say goodnight to the hyenas. He's got, appropriately for this time of day, a nightjar.
So quite interesting. Now we have a little nightjar. Now, which nightjar is it? They're incredibly difficult to identify without actually having the bird in hand. So I can't see any distinct rufous around the eye. Can you, Ryan? And I'm also seeing a very distinct white band on the wing. Now, I'm pretty sure that nightjar is the same nightjar that some of us are looking for. And I'm pretty sure that is the Mozambique or square-tailed nightjar. It doesn't have that very distinct rufous around the face, and it's got that quite distinct barring on the wings. So to me, I think that's pretty close. We will try sneak a little bit closer. I just wanted to get a safety. See what I was talking about? Those oh, he just chased something. Those whites in the wing there. Now, if he takes off, we want to be looking for these outer tail feathers as well. That's another distinct sign of the Mozambique nightjar. That's a female. Now, if we look at the others we get here, it's definitely not a freckled. That we know for sure. But the other possibility, freckled is quite distinct in comparison, is the fiery necks. And if we look at the photos, you see that red around the face on the male, and those white bars in the wing aren't as prominent. That's the egg. So I didn't see that, and I didn't see that in the face. He's just flown a little bit further. Let's try and get a little bit closer. Maybe it's time to take out the spotlight as well. So Marilyn was looking for a square-tailed nightjar for her bird list. So my spotlight seems to have got buried down here somewhere. Let's try and get a little bit closer. Oh, see, it's grabbing the insects. That's why they quite often like to sit on roads. It's quite nice and open, and they can see the insects silhouetted. So now we're looking, remember, for that rufous in the face. And I'm not really seeing it. No. Nightjars are incredibly difficult. Raisa said we should wait till it sings. I'm just going to try and sneak a little bit closer. I want to see those outer tail feathers a bit more clearly. How's that, Brian? We're looking for white on the outer tail feathers. Look at that, and that is just the most incredible little bird. Let's wait for it to possibly spot an insect and take off. Look how it's looking around. There we go, if we use the blue light. No. Don't see any rufous on the face. Oh, there he goes. Oh, I know, of course I took my eye off. Brian, did you see any white flecks in the tail feathers there? Okay, let's try again. As I took my eye off him. Yes, I did, as he took off there. So there we go. Marilyn was looking for that one for her bird list. The square-tailed or Mozambique nightjar. Now, after we went off air last night on our way home, Brian and I actually encountered a pair of side-striped jackal. So we're heading into the area where we saw them to see if we can find them again. Now we just got to get the freckled, which is going to be quite the challenge, I think. But the killer bees are up to it, whether it be mammal or bird, or insect, or amphibian, or tree, or flower, or anything out here in the African bush. Zoe's being very observant and said you can definitely tell that a nightjar is nocturnal when you look at that, how big their eyes are, incredibly massive to capture any ambient light around. So this is the area where we saw those jackal last night, so let's have a look. Maybe we'll catch something else coming sneaking for a drink at 3 in a row pan. Sorry about that. I missed it. Thank goodness. Brian saw a snake in the road. I had to veer off not to hit it. So let's see if we can find it again. It went into this bush. Just make sure it's not a mumbo. We'll go a bit wider. I thought Brian had seen a leopard, so I was looking up like this. Where? So it went into this bush. What color was it, Brian?
Lightish brown.
Lightish brown. Ooh, lightish brown. Could be a mamba. Could have escaped further now. Now, as we start going into the cold months, I'll check from the other side, you can actually find snakes on the roads like this because they hold heat for a little bit longer. Oh, there's a hole in there that it might have escaped into. Unfortunately, it has disappeared. You can see in there, there's some holes. There's a termite mound at the base of there, and it's disappeared in there. Well, unfortunately, we didn't get to see it, but fortunately, Brian managed to get hold of me before I ran it over. But I thought Brian had seen, I don't know, a lion or a leopard, and he was going, stop, and I'm trying to see where he's looking, but it was right on the road in front of us. One last quick look from the top. No, I think it disappeared down the hole. Well, thank you, Brian. Saving the snake's life. Sure, it's a close one. Wicked Ange would like to know, do we have any types of skunk here? We have a polecat, which is our sort of African version of the skunk. Striped polecat, much smaller than the skunks in the northern hemisphere. A very tiny little guy, about this big with his tail. Black and white stripes, but can spray foul-smelling things out of its anal gland. So we're approaching the exact spot where the jackals were last night. And maybe they like this area. They can become quite resident in an area. That's why we're coming to have a look. Not sure what snake we nearly drove over, but Red is wondering if a mamba goes into a termite mound, can termites defend themselves, or will most of them get eaten? Well, fortunately, there's no need for a termite to defend itself against a mamba, as they don't eat termites. So they're mambas generally small to medium-sized rodents, rabbits, other snakes. So they are very much hunters of other prey rather than insectivores. Oh, no jackals tonight on the clearing. hopefully we spot another snake, and this time I spotted it within time, not having to swerve off the road as to not drive over it. Well, thank you to you too, Marilyn. Just a quick note from Marilyn, who says, big thanks to Brent. That's number 156 with pictures on the list. Brent, you're the best. Now, you guys are the best for joining us out on these safaris, and you make what we do so special. Well done, Judy. 179 was the square-tailed nightjar for Judy. That's impressive. Mike in Florida better watch out. He's got some competition. So James has been telling you some stories about our younger years to the south of here, when we used to live along the banks of the Sand River. And there's a story about a female hyena called the Gorgonzola female that James told you about. And if you want to know if it's true, whether I kicked the hyena on the backside when it was in the kitchen. And yes, it is true. It was the first and last hyena I kicked. And normally you can chase a hyena quite easily, but it was quite funny because now hyenas got claws and the kitchen is tiled, so they've got no grip. So when they try to run away from you in the kitchen, they try to take a corner and they sort of whack onto their sides. So I gave her a hefty hoof. And I've got size 12 feet, so, and I was wearing my winter boots, so hefty shoes in them. And I was amazed at how fast she could turn around and snap at me. And I decided from then that I wasn't going to kick any more hyenas. Got a really big fight there, but did manage to get them out of the kitchen. There were actually 3 in the kitchen that night. A trainee chef got to close the door. We're going to keep checking around here. There's always a chance of a leopard. I know there were tracks of quarantine in this area, but he crossed through to the west of here, but he might meander back. Always double check down those roads at night. You never know what might be walking up them. There could be a lion, there could be a leopard, there could even be a hyena. That particular hyena got very fat on cheese. It was almost, I think it was almost every single Burma dinner. So while we start our way back towards Djuma, James is with the Nkuhuma Pride, who are coming into their element as darkness sets.
So this, of course, is the best time to be with lions, just as they start to wake up, have a yawn, and this lot have just heard a whole lot of impala rutting down there, and I think that they're probably going to go and have a look-see if they can't catch one. One of them has moved into the block. I'm just going to get the spotlight, retrieve it from the great bird's nest of wires I have here. Let me put the light on these chaps again. There are these two behind us. You can see them listening intently. They've heard the impala rutting. Now they know that when impala are rutting, they are thinking of nothing but the ladies and fighting each other off. And that means they're not thinking about lions coming to eat them. They actually sound like they're alarm calling. They are. Trying to discern if it's an alarm call or if they're rutting. No, they're alarm calling. Everybody, you've seen these lions today. You've seen another set of lions. Let's go and quickly look and see if there isn't perhaps something else on the clearing there, like maybe a leopard. Sorry, Mr. Lion, I mean, at least Mrs. Lion, you're very attractive and all that, but let's go and see what the impala alarm calling at. So, we're just right next, you can probably see the lights of the lodge there. We're about to go across the Djuma Dam. Those impala are going ballistic. Keep an eye on the Djuma Dam camera, see if anything doesn't come down to drink there. And we'll go on to the clearings just below Inga's house, or just below and to the east of Quarantine, and we'll see if there isn't anything there. Wily those impala are. We've seen Tingana for a while. Maybe he's come back. Maybe Karula's come all the way down here. Keep an eye out. Believe how wonderfully warm it is at the moment. It's really pretty good temperature for mid-April. Hold on, everybody, there'll be a small bump. It won't be a very small bump, in fact. So if you have dentures, take them out now. There we go. Well done, one more. That's it. And up the other side. Right, let's drive along here. They were calling the impala along this road here. Look behind me. Don't see anything there. Don't see anything along here. Alright, let's carry on. And then we're going to have a listen. See if we can't hear something that might be alarm calling. Now those impala would not have been able to see the lions. They were all the other side of the drainage line. Radio. Okay, let's stop and listen, everyone. Naturally, they've stopped. And here, Franklin making its last call. A cuckoo, actually. A Lavaliance cuckoo making its call. I'm sure its parents have gone home, flown overseas. That's probably a first-year cuckoo, staying for the year with its babbler hosts. No, nothing. Okay, let's go up towards Quarantine clearings. There's a road just up ahead here that heads towards the clearings. This is roundabout where I heard the impala alarming. It will not be surprising to me to find Karula on the hunt around here. She would have then done a full circle. Today, in her quest, I went to check the tree where she was while you were with Brent, and she was not there anymore, and she wasn't anywhere around there. But it was quite thick, so it's not impossible that she was lurking under the bush there, eating a duiker or something delicious like that. Goes a little bit faster. Get to the road that goes up towards Quarantine. while we do that, we were chatting about cuckoos going overseas. Of course, the Wahlberg's eagles that live in that tree over there, in that nest, they've all gone up into sub-Saharan or the sort of the Sahel region between Senegal in the far west and probably as far east as the Sudan, just south of the Sahara Desert. They're the first to leave, or one of the first to leave, and one of the first to come back. But it's hardly wintry out here now. Dave, was Johannesburg cold? Not at all. That's quite odd. Maybe we're in for a fairly mild winter. A wet summer seems to me to often mean a cold winter. We've had a dry summer, so maybe it's going to be warmer than we think. Right, let's go across to Brent while I have a quick look around here. He's got something feathered to show you.
Another one of the more incredible little nocturnal birds, and one we have seen a few times but definitely not often on the safaris. This is a bronze-winged courser. Beautiful bird. See, also an insectivore that hunts along the more open patches, so the roads, and during the day they'll sleep in the thickets. I'm trying to see, quite often you find 2 or 3 of them, and one of the really cool little nocturnal birds we do see from time to time. You can see related or similar family to plovers, but definitely not so noisy. And if I remember correctly, this is the only courser we get in the Sabi Sands. I think we might get, oh, damselfly hopping around in front of that courser. Obviously not a very appetizing thing if you're a courser, damselflies. Or we might be just a bit disturbed that we're very close. Oh. They always look very calculated in their movements to me. Like every step, every tiny step that's made is very thought out. Knobbly knees. Oh, our lights are bringing in lots of damselflies. Oh, nearly flew. It bends its knees, ready for flight. Unfortunately, I'm going to ask him to move because he's in the road. Oh, look at that. That burst. You see how it bent its knees? And if it hits anything that might be a little bit suspicious, it bends its knees and then explodes to just get away in case it's like to jump on it. And congratulations to a lot of you who that will also be a new bird for. So very exciting. So lovely, 2 new birds for lots of people on the sunset safari. And we got to meet Gnormless Gnorman, the Gnu, who resides on the southern open area of Cheetah Plains. And of course, who could forget the Nkahuma ladies? While we make our way back home to Djuma from Cheetah Plains, let's go spend the last few moments of the evening with James in the Nkuhumas, and we'll see you tomorrow. And the Flum will also see you tomorrow.
I am scouring the landscape like a lighthouse might scour the sea surface. The impala was shouting just over behind us. They're still looking down towards the pan. I'm going to head that way to see if we can't spot anything going on there. I'm pretty sure the lions have not moved just yet, although they might come across the dam wall as we speak. I see another vehicle in that vicinity. They were shouting very loudly around here. We came back around towards the pan and found nothing. So Have a quick look-see. We've got 4 minutes left for me to attempt to find you some kind of spotted predator. David, do you see a spotted predator anywhere?
Not yet.
I feel like, given that it's your first day back, that would be a nice round off to the drive, don't you? No, nothing here. They're all looking up towards this place, you know. They're still looking towards the final control. The final control is basically where I just pointed. Someone is stalking Rebecca and stalking Kirsten in there. They're looking straight into, I mean, I say the final control is actually the home of the landowner. It's not there at the moment. But there may well be a leopard stalking through the bush here. Let's just be quiet and have another listen. We'll just look off into the bush there. No, they seem to be quiet, but they were all up, their heads were all looking in this direction. We'll just kind of paint the bush with the spotlight and see if the telltale shiny eyes of a leopard walking through the bush don't greet us like two fallen stars. Wasn't that poetic, David?
Beautiful.
Thank you so much. We're going to go straight past the final control, everyone. So do wave at Rebecca and Kirsty as we go past. So the fence you can see leads straight into Buyatela camp. We've only got 2 minutes left to find David and Leopard, everybody. Quickly look around. Karula is known to spend time in Buyatela camp to use these roads that we're walking. Ooh! No, that's a hyena. Fossilized trap. Here's the final control. Hi guys. Okay, let's pull out onto quarantine for our final minute. We'll just see if something doesn't pop out there. Quarantine, for those of you who don't know, is a clearing, so named for the fact that animals were quarantined there at one stage. Not a particularly romantic name, like a Serengeti perhaps, or Saloon. More Impala up ahead, and as I said earlier, all of them coming onto the clearings now to try and see what might come and eat them during the night, and all of them secretly hoping, of course, that their mate gets taken rather than them. Oh. Gracie, you say your favourite character was Baloo and Mowgli, and you felt like you wanted to be Mowgli, even though you're a little girl. Well, that's okay. You can still be a female Mowgli, Gracie. So elephants all over this clearing, impala all over this clearing. Lots going on. Thank you, everybody, for all of your questions and comments today. We had some great in-depth stuff today, which was fantastic. Welcome back, David. Lovely to have you back with us. Thanks to Rebecca and Kirsten. Louise is also back now. And a big thank you to Brent Leo Smith, being filmed by Brian Joubert on the other vehicle. We'll see you tomorrow at 05:30 during the breaking of the great African dawn. Bye-bye.